to become my first novel. It's called Prolonged Misunderstanding. So real quick, it'll probably take me like 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to read some excerpts from my impending novel. So hopefully one day in about 20 years, you'll come in here and you'll see Prolonged Misunderstanding by Ryan Jones in the fiction section. It's a dream, but it's going to happen. He was a gentle man of 24, one who always carried a book or two, but not for an air of vanity, but rather a safe haven from loneliness and fodder for creativity. Endless visions out of eyes which often peered out of library windows, a place which felt more than like home than any place he's ever laid his head. Cautious and creative was he, but also eccentric and egotistic, a man plagued by dualities. But he could never quite listen to the voices of others as flowing streams of verse swam down the river of his mind. And he did not understand why they came, but he took them as a sign from God, a bestowing of laurel leaf which was placed upon the crown of his head. And he felt blessed for certain, but not in that exaggerated way such as spoken by countless Christians in Sunday morning prayer lines, but an earnest feeling of blessing, one which he tried so vehemently to express on the blank page of life. And to Francis, there was always a distaste for the blank page. He believed the page should be dressed in black and never naked. And every day he went to war with his opposition. And some days his opposition won, and some days he won. But he always went to battle. And this battle was an intimate one. And upon placing his hands over the keyboard, his eyes became wide and inquisitive like those of a child. And there was a certain power that the typewriter granted him, limitless creation. And he felt as a writer, he was the closest to understanding how God must feel. Like God, a writer creates characters, filling them with life and purpose. And just like God, the writer knows the story well before the characters do. And his woman, lady, angel, butterfly, walks in grace. She possesses a sense of lost beauty which glows around her like a halo. A portrait of broken elegance like a bloody rose in the snow. Her sunken eyes are filled with the lust for salvation, looking for the key to unlock the elegies of her heart. And her broken wings, they flutter often, while tears, saturated symbols of pain, stain the carpet. And her tears, they fall as graceful as she, watering each petal of loneliness as they crash against her brown skin. But now, determination exceeds fallen whimpers. Those whimpers which were given life by lonely nights, the radiant moon, the one that glares back at you through the window of life and seems to cry along with you. And these nights silently roared through her existence and left her with 2 knees bent to God. And he listened and she listened. The fire of the Spirit emblazoned her consciousness and seemed to penetrate her body, and with a silent whisper spoke and said, "My child, I am and will always be the light." So she nodded, agreed, wiped off the pillowcase and looked back at that weeping moon and told him, "Don't weep for me, for I am finally free, and one step closer to revealing my light for this world to see." And after wiping off those pillowcases, the next morning, they decided to walk to their favorite bookstore. They walked through the dense city pavement. The smell of morning still lingered in their noses as they entered into the bookstore. And this particular bookstore, with its robust smell of coffee and dry ink, had become a place of solace from the world outside. He sipped his coffee and watched as she poured countless teaspoons of sugar into her tea. "Would you like some tea with your sugar?" he joked. She began to stir the mountain of sugar into her cup, and with each stir the aroma of Earl Grey filled the air. His mind slowly got up and walked away from the table. "What's on your mind?" she said. He uttered softly, "Life, I suppose." "Francis, you are 24. What do you know of life?" she laughed. He pondered her question while he watched the streaks of morning rain trickle down the window. "Life," he proclaimed, "life is merely a space between smiles in the delivery room and teardrops on tombstones. She shook her head with a faint smile. He took a sip of his coffee, still too hot to enjoy. And love, she said inquiringly, what do you know of that? In which he replied, love, well, that's an intriguing word. It is a word that I've heard before, but I'm not quite sure I've ever felt. I do know that it is easy to fall in love, but it is a challenge to stand in it. She reached her hand over to his and smiled, a smile which felt like the word love. Thank you so much, man.